Chastity devices are shrouded in mystery. Myths and misconceptions abound. These devices have long been a subject of intrigue and speculation, often misunderstood and misrepresented in popular culture and historical accounts. These devices evoke images of medieval knights and locked-up women, conjuring up tales of control and chastity imposed by force. The imagery is powerful, but it often oversimplifies a much more nuanced reality. But the truth is more complex. The history of chastity devices is not just about control and oppression. It is also about cultural practices, societal norms, and evolving attitudes towards sexuality and fidelity. This journey through time will explore the history of chastity devices, tracing their origins, development, and the various roles they have played in different societies. We will delve into the myths and uncover the facts that have been obscured by time. We will separate fact from fiction, examining the evidence and debunking the myths that have persisted for centuries. By doing so, we aim to provide a clearer understanding of these enigmatic devices. We will examine their evolution and cultural impact, looking at how they have been perceived and used in different eras. From ancient times to the present day, chastity devices have undergone significant changes in form and function. Chastity devices are often associated with the chastity belt, a symbol of medieval control and purity. This image has been popularized in literature and media, but it is only one part of the story. This device is imagined as a metal contraption, designed to prevent women from engaging in sexual activity. The idea is both fascinating and horrifying, capturing the imagination of many. It was supposedly used to prevent women from having sex, ensuring their fidelity while their husbands were away. However, the reality of its use is much more complex and often disputed by historians. However, the historical accuracy of the chastity belt is debated. Many supposed medieval examples are now considered to be later fabrications, created more for sensationalism than for actual use. Many supposed medieval examples are now considered to be later fabrications. These artifacts, often displayed in museums, tell a story that is more about our fascination with the past than about the past itself. The history of chastity devices extends beyond the chastity belt. It includes a wide range of devices and practices, each with its own unique history and cultural significance. It encompasses a variety of devices and practices, from simple locks to elaborate contraptions. These were used in different cultures and time periods, each reflecting the values and beliefs of their society. These were used in different cultures and time periods. The motivations behind their use were also diverse, ranging from ensuring fidelity to punishment and even medical purposes. The motivations behind their use were also diverse. Some were used to ensure fidelity, others as a form of punishment, and still others for medical reasons. Each use tells us something about the society that created it. They ranged from ensuring fidelity to punishment and even medical purposes. By examining these devices, we can learn about the values, fears, and beliefs of different cultures throughout history. By delving into the history of chastity devices, we gain insights into evolving attitudes towards sexuality. We see how these devices reflect changing views on morality, control, and the body. We see the interplay of power dynamics and cultural norms surrounding sex. These devices were not just about control, they were also about power, trust, and the complex relationships between men and women. This exploration aims to shed light on a fascinating and often misunderstood aspect of human history. By understanding the true history of chastity devices, we can better understand the societies that created them and the complex interplay of power, control, and sexuality that they represent. The origins of chastity devices can be traced back to ancient civilizations. Evidence is scarce and open to interpretation. In ancient Greece, there are accounts of devices used to safeguard virginity. These were more about controlling women's reproductive capacity than restricting pleasure. Roman literature mentions belts of Venus. These were possibly devices designed to prevent intercourse. However, it is unclear if these belts were actual devices or symbolic representations of fidelity. Some scholars believe they were merely decorative girdles. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the existence of such stories and references suggests an early awareness of chastity. These ancient cultures grappled with issues of fidelity and control over sexuality. The use of devices, whether real or imagined, reflects these concerns. It is important to note that our understanding of ancient practices is limited. Interpretations of art and literature are subjective. The true extent of chastity device use in ancient Greece and Rome remains a subject of debate among historians. The Middle Ages are often associated with the chastity belt, a device that has captured the imagination of many over the centuries. This era is often depicted as a time of chivalry and courtly love, where noble knights would go on grand adventures and engage in romantic pursuits. According to popular belief, knights going off to war supposedly locked their ladies in chastity belts to ensure their fidelity during their long absences. This imagery, however, is largely a product of later centuries, particularly the Renaissance and the Victorian era, which romanticized and sensationalized medieval life. While there are a few medieval references to devices that might have been chastity belts, actual artifacts are extremely rare, casting doubt on their widespread use. One notable example is an illustration in Conrad Kaiser's Bellefortis from around 1405, which depicts a belt with a locking mechanism. This illustration has been cited as evidence of the existence of chastity belts, but its purpose is still debated among historians. Some scholars suggest that it may have been a military or medical device rather than a chastity device used for purposes other than controlling female sexuality. The ambiguity surrounding these devices highlights the complexity of interpreting historical artifacts and the importance of context in understanding their use. The scarcity of physical evidence suggests that chastity belts were not commonplace in the Middle Ages, and their portrayal in popular culture may be more myth than reality. Their popularity in the modern imagination is likely due to a combination of factors, including the Victorian-era fascination with the medieval period and the desire to sensationalize history. During the 19th century, there was a resurgence of interest in medieval times, leading to the creation of many myths and legends about the era. Sensationalized history books and dramatized historical reenactments further perpetuated the idea of the chastity belt, embedding it in the collective consciousness. Medieval society did place a high value on female chastity, but this was primarily enforced through social norms and religious teachings rather than physical devices. Social gatherings and religious teachings played a significant role in maintaining the moral fabric of medieval communities, emphasizing the importance of virtue and chastity. The use of physical devices, while not unheard of, was likely rare and not as widespread as popular culture suggests. The myth of the chastity belt serves as a reminder of how history can be shaped by later interpretations and the enduring appeal of sensational stories. Section 4. Renaissance Restraint, Fact and Fiction. The Renaissance saw a significant shift in attitudes towards sexuality, marking a departure from the more rigid and austere views of the medieval period. This era, spanning roughly from the 14th to the 17th century, was characterized by a renewed interest in the arts, science, and the human experience. Humanism and classical ideals emerged as dominant intellectual movements, emphasizing the value and agency of human beings. Scholars and artists looked back to the ancient Greeks and Romans for inspiration, celebrating the human form and exploring themes of love and desire in their works. However, despite these progressive shifts, concerns about chastity and moral conduct persisted, particularly within the church and among the clergy. The tension between the celebration of human desires and the call for moral restraint created a complex social landscape. This period saw the emergence of more documented cases of chastity devices, which were often mentioned in various texts and manuscripts. These devices were designed to ensure the chastity of individuals, particularly women, and were sometimes depicted in both serious and satirical contexts. However, their use remained relatively uncommon and was often surrounded by myths and exaggerations. The actual prevalence of these devices is still a matter of historical debate, with some historians suggesting that they were more symbolic than practical. Some accounts suggest that chastity belts were used on women whose husbands were away on long journeys, such as during the Crusades or on trading expeditions. These belts were intended to protect the woman's virtue and ensure her fidelity. Others describe devices used in brothels to prevent pregnant prostitutes from working, highlighting the intersection of morality, economics, and control in the regulation of sexuality. These accounts, however, are often anecdotal and should be approached with caution. There are also records of devices used as a form of punishment for adultery or promiscuity, reflecting the period's punitive approach to sexual transgressions. These punishments were often harsh and intended to serve as a deterrent to others. The Renaissance also saw the development of medical theories about chastity and sexual health. Some physicians believed that retaining semen was beneficial for men's health, a theory that influenced the promotion of chastity devices for men. These medical beliefs were part of a broader discourse on the body and health that emerged during the Renaissance, as scholars sought to reconcile classical knowledge with contemporary medical practices. This led to the promotion of chastity devices for men, though their use was likely limited and more theoretical than practical. The idea of male chastity devices reflects the period's complex attitudes towards sexuality and control. It's important to note that many accounts from this period are anecdotal or found in satirical literature, which often exaggerated or mocked contemporary practices. These sources provide valuable insights but must be interpreted with care. This makes it difficult to determine the prevalence and actual use of chastity devices with certainty. Historians continue to debate the extent to which these devices were used and their significance in Renaissance society. What is clear is that the Renaissance saw a continuation of the complex relationship between sexuality, morality, and control. This period of cultural and intellectual flourishing was marked by both progressive ideas and enduring conservative values, reflecting the multifaceted nature of human society. Section 5. Victorian Curios, a fascination with control. The Victorian era is often associated with sexual repression. Paradoxically, it was also a time of intense fascination with sexuality. This era saw a surge in interest in chastity devices, though not necessarily for their intended use. The 19th century witnessed the creation of numerous antique chastity belts. These were later revealed to be fakes, crafted to satisfy the Victorian curiosity for the scandalous and the taboo. Museums and private collectors eagerly acquired these objects, often without questioning their authenticity. The Victorian interest in chastity devices was more about control and curiosity than actual use. These objects became symbols of a bygone era, representing a time when sexuality was perceived as something to be tightly controlled, especially for women. This fascination with chastity devices reflects the anxieties of the Victorian era. Rapid social change, industrialization, and evolving gender roles contributed to a sense of unease. Chastity devices, whether real or fabricated, provided a tangible outlet for these anxieties, serving as objects of both fascination and repulsion.